The Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited says that it is willing to outsource some or all of its operations and maintenance of the Warri and Kaduna refining petrochemical companies. Well, tonight, Babajide Ogunsawo, founder of Leadership by Data and Channels Television's data analyst, is here to share more insights about the management of Nigeria's refineries. Hello, Babajide. It's good to have you on the news at 10 again. Thank you for joining us. Good evening. Now, the NNPC has said that it is looking for private companies to operate its Kaduna, of course, and Warri refineries. But is there any evidence, when we look at all of this, of studies probably, that suggest that this is the right way to go?
The first evidence is the statement we've just read earlier in the bulletin from NNPC. And that evidence points to the fact that prior to now, NNPC has been performing magic. In simple terms, the summary of the statement states that we've been importing petrol at a price, and we've been selling that price. I've been selling petrol below the price it lands for. So, in simple terms, NNPC is saying that petrol price is about to go up. So, the summary is they've been doing magic. The question Nigerians are asking, and why we are seeing so many fuel queues right now, is because they're asking. NNPC has done its magic, is saying it's tired of doing magic. Will the federal government now do a miracle? Will the federal government perform a miracle? What do I mean? Now that the statement from the NNPC has come out, the statement we're expecting from the government is the government willing to allow Nigerians to buy petrol for as much as 1,200 naira to as much as 1,500 naira per litre? In between the statement from the NNPC and the statement we're expecting from the government, in between that gulf lies the solution to fuel queues and fuel pricing. But what is clear is that petrol prices may likely significantly go up. So that sorts out the first issue that we started off with tonight. Now, the second issue is with reference to the Warri and Kaduna refineries. Can the government manage these refineries? And it depends on who you ask. Some say no, some say yes. Those that say no point to the history of turnaround maintenances. Those that maintenance that we've had. Those that say no point out to the evidence that shows that the equipment and the parts that are required for refining come from outside Nigeria. Those that say no point to the complexities of engineering, procurement, and construction processes that a refinery in the scale of Warri and Kaduna need. So those that say no make those arguments. However, those that say yes point to the evidence of successful operations in the telecommunications sector. Let's take a look at how the telecommunications sector as a case study evolved and the sort of growth we saw when we started managing that sector right by involving more private investors. 2002, Nigeria only had 2 million connected telephone lines. Now, based on the evidence from the National Bureau of Statistics and the Nigerian Communications Commission, they say that has grown to 225 million, a growth in excess of 112 times compared to 2002. So those that say yes point to the evidence from the telecommunications sector. But let's also even take a look at how this telecommunications sector has positively impacted Nigeria. What has happened in the last 5 years? In 2019, telecommunications accounted for 10% of Nigeria's total economic output. That has now grown to an excess of 14.4% in just less than 5 years. In summary terms, the way Nigeria's telecommunications sector and information services is adding to the national economic output, in another 10 years, it is very likely, going by this trend, telecommunications will create more output than even Nigeria's agricultural sector.
All right. Anyone will want to know how interlinked or how connected. It's a different thing, the concern of Nigerians about petrol queues right now. How is it now connected? That's the petrol availability. How is it connected to the headache in the crude oil sector, talking about the refineries? How can things get better?
In simple terms, Anne, just as blood is to your body, that is how crude oil is to refinery. And with reference to Nigeria's crude oil, refinery, and petrol supply, there's good, bad, and ugly news. I'll end with the good, but let's start with the bad news. What do I mean by the bad news? If we take a look at where Nigeria was with crude oil production when we started this Fourth Republic in 1999, it shows a lot of bad news. 1999, we're producing an average of 1.9 million barrels of crude oil per day based on OPEC's data. Now that has significantly dropped. We're just about seeing those numbers grow. In summary terms, Nigeria of 1999, with reference to our crude oil production, was better than Nigeria of today. Look at some of the benchmark countries, how they've made progress. Saudi Arabia, 1999, 7.5 million barrels per day. 2022, 10.6 million barrels. Iraq has grown to 4.4 million barrels per day compared to where they were in 1999. UAE, now 3 million barrels per day compared to where they were in 1999. Even Algeria, now over 1 million barrels compared to where they were in 1999. Nigeria, based on OPEC's data, 1999, 1.9 million barrels per day. Now we're looking at 1.3, 1.4. We've seen some recent growth, but we're still not where we were even as at the beginning of 1999. So bad news. Now let's take a look at the ugly news. Now, yes, the NNPC is saying it's trying to optimize its processes. It started an expression of interest saying for the Warri and Kaduna refinery, and has clearly stated what is scope of work for those that it intends to outsource operations and maintenance to, which we have in front of us. However, the challenge is that even the NNPC says it is not bound to shortlist any bidder and reserve the right to annul the procurement process at any time without incurring any liabilities. In simple terms, what the NNPC is saying is we are thinking of outsourcing Warri and Kaduna operations and management and maintenance to people that are qualified to do so. However, despite our ideas and thinking about this, we might wake up and change our mind, and nobody should hold us to ransom. So that is some really ugly news coming from the NNPC. Despite the show of interest, they're still saying that we might choose to call off this process. So putting all this makes the issues of petrol supply, issues of crude oil supply availability, is why we are seeing a lot of panic in the downstream sector. We are seeing a lot of queues. People are worried that they'll wake up tomorrow and petrol prices will have significantly changed. And that's why I said, yes, the NNPC statement has come out, it's clear. Now we need the government to come out and make a strong statement by saying, are we allowing the NNPC to sell petrol at the prevailing market price, or however does the government understand the implications of this beyond petrol prices?
I mean, we've seen numbers there, and those numbers are, I don't know how to explain it, but how much is Nigeria actually losing when it comes to the slow growth of Nigeria's oil refining sector? How much? What's the figure?
So one way to look at it is we could look at how much is Nigeria losing, and we could look at what the NNPC is saying it intends, how it wants to stop the bleeding. So let's take a look at the oil refining sector, especially in the last 5 years. It will make you clearly understand why the NNPC is perhaps considering to outsource the Warri and Kaduna refinery for better operations. 2019, Nigeria's oil refining output accounted for 0.14% of the national output. You heard me right, not 1%, 0.14%. And that has declined consistently in the last 5 years. 2020, 0.05. 2021, 0.03%. 2022, 0.02%. End of last year, 0.01%. In simple terms, if this trend continues, by the end of this year, it will be 0.00%. So what the NNPC management and leadership is saying is that they intend to correct this. They've seen these trends, these dangerous trends. And if you take a look at some of the statements, even coming out from the group CEO of the NNPC, Mele Kyari, talking about, yes, they earlier released their financial performance, which showed that the NNPC is back on profitability. He's saying that beyond their recent financial performance, that they firmly, which establishes their strategy, they remain dedicated to more efficiently managing their assets and enhancing transparency. That's good news. But then, in the final analysis, the question Nigerians are really asking is, what is the outlook for fuel supply And should this current management of the NNPC be blamed? The answer is the current management and leadership of the NNPC alone shouldn't be blamed. And since 1999, Nigeria has had 4 refineries. It's been unsure of what to do. Since 1999, Nigeria has had 5 presidents unsure about what to do with the refineries. Since 1999, the NNPC has had, previous to now, 10 general managing directors. They've been unsure of what to do. Since 1999, and it is now a quarter of a century, the state of Nigeria is still unsure of what to do with refineries. And if we can't efficiently decide what we want to do with 4 refineries, what will we decide to do with Nigeria's 230 million human refineries? So my fear, Anne, is that in another quarter of a century, we will be back here discussing about Nigeria's 4 refineries. Anne?
Well, that's not what we pray for.
See you in 2049.
No, I refuse. Thank you very much. Babajide Ogunsanya, founder of Leadership by Data, and of course, Channels Television's data analyst. We always have to be optimistic.
We will be. We will be.
Thank you.